Welcome to the birth of the era of degeneracy in Cardano. You can now be just as big a degen in Cardano as you've always been able to be in the EVM world. Do you want to short a DeFi project using its own platform? How about shorting a homegrown NFT project where the artist founder is barely scraping by on royalties? Now you can do all that and more from the comfort of your own home while wearing your smoking jacket and drinking a nice glass of cognac that only you will know tastes almost as sweet as the tears of the project hodlers. It's Degen time. Ready? Let's go. Today, we're going to discuss the ADA launch and what's apparently already happening there, the CPI report for August, the new NFT maker NFT licenses, a new video on the IOG Stanford Blockchain Research Hub, and the surprising Edendale demo that recently dropped. If you saw this image and you immediately thought, if my significant other, if I catch them looking at the phone while we're on the beach hugging and we're supposed to be looking at the sunset, that's grounds for dismissal, whether I'm looking at my own phone or not. Or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Guys, I'm so sorry. I let us down. This is on me. I tried everything I could to rally the votes. All I can say is that this was a bit of a governance vote, and I wonder how different this would have looked if it was on-chain voting of actual MusiSwap governance token holders, the milk holders, because I think the Army of Spies has a fair number of milk token holders, and I'm not so sure about how many of these 2,900 voters actually hold milk tokens or how many of them ever will have any intention of holding milk tokens, but we'll never know. We are now entering a brand new period in the history of Cardano. This is going to be the period when a whole bunch of DeFi projects, beyond just DEXs, we've already got a bunch of DEXs, and I'm super glad they've already launched, but beyond just DEXs, we're going to have a whole bunch of other DeFi projects launching now, and that's going to include lending and borrowing platforms. And the second you've got lending and borrowing platforms, you've also got short selling, which ushers in the birth of a whole new era of degeneracy. Here we have ADA saying peer-to-peer lending and borrowing is live on Cardano and is presented for you by ADA Finance. They've got this nice little graphic here showing you live lending and borrowing of Cardano native assets. So, of course, it's the same day. Not even a day goes by before we see this post. So I guess you all started using ADA to short ADA, huh? People are already using a project's own platform to short that project in Cardano. It's been possible for like one day. It hasn't even been a full day yet, and this is already happening. Of course, that only made people think about Gucci.io, which is the Cardano platform, which intends to allow people to short NFTs at floor price. This poster said, already, what about Gucci.io? We will be shorting everything on Cardano, to which Gucci.io responded, sell it all. Don't get me wrong here. I'm a hardcore capitalist, and I believe in free and efficient markets, and short selling can be a part of a free and efficient market. However, there are probably a lot of people in the Cardano ecosystem who haven't watched the development of DeFi in other ecosystems, and they probably have no idea how deep and all-consuming the degeneracy in DeFi can become once you hit a certain threshold. Once you have things like a bunch of competing DEXs and short selling and the equivalent of native assets and NFTs and a whole bunch of different platforms which tend to end up doing more and more exoticized things. I don't know if some people in the ecosystem are quite prepared for where this goes. Some people already know. They know all too well where this goes. But I think some people are going to be surprised how degenerate it can get. Just wait until we have a synthetics platform that allows for the shorting of Tesla or Facebook or Apple or pretty much whatever asset you can imagine. It's like a regulator's nightmare. Speaking of markets and things getting out of hand, the US Consumer Price Index for August came out. And of course, as you probably already know, we saw an 8.3% inflation number. This is obviously way more than almost anybody wanted to see. And we know that because it's not a very ordinary day when we see red numbers as big as these. The Financial Times reminded us that this was the worst sell-off since June 2020, saying stocks and treasuries sink as investors predict more aggressive action from the Federal Reserve. Wall Street suffered the worst sell-off since the early days of the pandemic after official data showed U.S. inflation increased unexpectedly in August. Was it really unexpected? Raising the specter, the Federal Reserve will need to act more aggressively to combat rising prices. Like I said, this is all completely unexpected. I mean, it's not like we increased M2 by over 40%, right? Wait. If you're curious what M2 is a measure of the US money supply, and it's M1 plus some other things. M1 is roughly currency and coins held by the non-bank public, checkable deposits, and traveler's checks. M2 also includes some other things: savings deposits, including money market deposit accounts, small time deposits under 100,000, and shares in retail money market funds. This is actually one of the Fed's slightly less technical definitions of M2. If you want to see a more technical definition, it's right under the chart for M2 that I showed you. You've probably heard me talk about the gap between the way a lot of NFT consumers seem to think intellectual property law will apply to their NFTs and the way the law probably cognizes intellectual property in a lot of cases. It looks like NFT Maker is trying to bridge that gap right now. They posted, "We've seen a lot of confusion surrounding what you're allowed to do with NFTs. This is often because projects release NFTs without clear guidance on what you're allowed to do with them. This is why we're introducing NMKR license." When we come over here to the blog post, it looks like we've got at least 3 different types of licenses. They've got one they're calling an open source license. This license is for open source and allows the owner any and all modifications of the art, so long as the modified art is not claimed to be the original. A license for personal use. This license is for personal, non-commercial use and permits the owner to use the art for personal and non-commercial purposes only. And 3, a license for commercial use. This is created to give common ground for all parties in regards to what kind of commercial use rights the NFT artist wants to grant to the owner of an NFT, including if a credit or reproduction may or may not be necessary, or if permission is needed. I think this is a great first step, actually having some different categories of licenses for the creators to grant to the end consumer, the end owner of the NFT. Probably, things can get a little bit complicated though when we start asking the question. Yes, but does the creator of the art, does the NFT artist, the person purporting to be the NFT artist here, do they actually own all the intellectual property related to the art itself? We saw this in the SpaceBuds case. Turned out there were some other artists out there who may or may not have created art that was borrowed for the NFTs. If that's the case, if the NFT artist here who may want to grant to the owner of an NFT certain intellectual property rights in that NFT, if they don't actually own all the intellectual property originally, then it's not really an effective grant of those rights, because that other party could be an intervening party who comes in and says, "Hey, this other person may have granted you, their permission to use the NFT in that way, but actually some of that art belongs to me, and I haven't yet granted you that right." So I think this is a great step in the right direction. It doesn't remedy this situation where the person purporting to have the intellectual property rights over the NFT may not always have all of those rights, which is something we've already seen in the Cardano ecosystem so far. IOG has dropped a new video about their Stanford Research Hub. I think this is a really telling sign. The way that Charles and IOG have gone around investing in universities. He had the investment in a center for mathematics previously, and I think it sounds like that was maybe kind of Charles personally. This one is obviously IOG because this is a Stanford Research Hub for blockchain research. I think this is a really telling sign of IOG's intentions because now that we've gotten all the way to Vossel, it would be pretty easy for IOG to just kind of crossfade. If they didn't care, they could just kind of crossfade out. We've seen that many times in crypto, both in large blockchains and in smaller projects, of course. But I think it's very telling that IOG is like, hey, we've just launched what we think is the very best. Like the critical pieces, minus, some of the scaling and, a lot of the governance, minus those pieces, we've just launched what we think is the most advanced, most efficient, best Gen 3 blockchain. An endeavor that's taken years and years and years. But they're not resting. They could just crossfade and kind of rest. But they're not doing that. They're investing in the future of blockchain research because they want to go further. When we hear Charles talk about what he wants to do next, we hear him talking about things like Minotaur, like, hey, how do we get proofs of everything into the blockchain? We hear him talk about Ophelamos, which is like, hey, how can we create a proof of work that just doesn't waste energy? How can we use that energy to, solve complex math problems, search the skies for whatever. I know everybody's thinking extraterrestrial intelligence, but it could be whatever, right? It could just be searching for whatever or doing some kind of computations related to those kinds of searches. There are a lot of things humanity needs, and Ophelamos attempts to redirect the wasted proof of work computing. I know people will get up in arms because I said wasted, but you know what I'm saying? Redirect that computation towards something useful for mankind. These are all signs of IOG's intentions. They don't want to crossfade into obscurity. They've got all the ADA. They could just go ahead and stake their ADA and make all the money they need. It's not really about the money thing for them anymore. It's about crafting a better future, a better blockchain space just generally. They could have gone around and, just sort of commissioned the professors they're interested in to do, projects for them, to do little things. That doesn't seem like what they're doing here. What they're doing here is investing in the future of the blockchain space in general. And you hear Charles talk about that. He doesn't just say, this is great. The Stanford Research Hub is going to give Cardano a huge advantage. You hear him talking about how the blockchain space needs to get to a place where we actually fulfill all those promises that were made, over the last over a decade. He wants the crypto space to actually fulfill all those promises, and he knows it's going to require some more work, academic, engineering, and otherwise, but some more work to actually get there. And I think these are all signs that IOG is really committed to us getting there. For more details on the Stanford IOG Blockchain Research Hub, you should go check out this video. It's called Stanford Research Hub, Innovating Together. Look at that, only 985 views. It dropped today as I record, which is September 13th. If you're watching this video when it debuts, that'll be yesterday for you. It's on the Input Output channel on YouTube. Here's another video that I know not very many of you have seen because only 79 people have seen it. It came out yesterday. Reach Metaverse dropped this video and they say Metaverse game created in under 12 hours using Reach. Playable game experience live on Reach. Check it out on the Reach app. This experience was created in 12 hours utilizing Reach Cloud and Unity. They say Reach Metaverse is a platform to build, host, and connect metaspaces, which make up the metaverse. Reach gives the capability to users to create metaspaces for many functional tasks, and most importantly, makes the spaces easily accessible for users across platforms. This is really interesting. Oftentimes we think of metaverse projects as being this like pre-packaged, pre-built out thing that's just sort of presented to us. And a lot of the metaverses do have plans to let us sort of build our own buildings, on the parcels we're buying from them. And, sometimes they're templated to varying degrees, but it looks like Reach is really approaching this from kind of a different angle. They say, while one client built a conference hall for seminars and training across the world, another built metaspaces that are being used to treat various brain injuries. Interested in hosting your own live events or developing in the metaverse? Contact Reach. So I think they're really trying to allow you to create your own sort of bespoke metaverse experience. And this video is pretty good. For something that was created in 12 hours, I got to admit, this does look surprisingly like a legit video game. When I see where this is right now, and I think about where we'll be in, say, 5 years, I have to wonder if the metaverse is going to bring us the same kind of democratization of online gaming that YouTube brought us in terms of video. The great thing is, we'll have front row seats to watch all that unfold. I hope you're having a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.